Most compliments don't create attraction, they kill it. Not because they're bad, but because they're predictable, empty, and forgettable. Thoughtful, but the right compliment, said the right way, at the right moment, doesn't just get attention, it stays in her mind long after the conversation ends. Most people think giving a compliment is just about saying something nice, but the difference between a forgettable compliment and a powerful one is in how specific it feels. When something sounds generic, it immediately blends in with everything else she's heard before. Curious lines like, "you're beautiful" or "you're nice" don't really land because they don't show any real attention. They feel easy, almost automatic, like something that could be said to anyone. What actually creates impact is when a compliment shows that you've noticed something particular to it. Could be the way she explains something, the way she reacts in a certain situation, or even how she expresses herself when she talks about something she cares about. These are the kinds of details most people overlook, and that's exactly why they matter more. When you point them out, it signals that you're not just looking, you're observing. There's also a subtle emotional effect that comes with specificity. It makes her pause for a second because it feels unexpected. Instead of brushing it off, she actually processes it. That moment of processing is where the connection starts to build, because now it's not just a compliment, it's recognition. Another thing is that specific compliments feel more genuine without trying too hard. You don't need exaggerated words or over-the-top delivery. In fact, the more natural it sounds, the more believable it becomes. It's less about impressing and more about reflecting something real that you noticed. Over time, this kind of communication stands out because it feels rare. Most people don't take the time to notice small things, so when someone does, it naturally creates a different kind of impression that stays longer in her mind. Most people assume that physical compliments are the strongest, but emotional validation is what actually creates a deeper connection. Saying something about appearance might get a quick smile, but it doesn't stay for long because it's something she's likely heard before. It doesn't tell her that you understand anything about who she is beneath the surface. Emotional validation works differently because it reflects how she feels, not just how she looks. It could be recognizing her effort, her thoughts, or the way she handles certain situations. When you acknowledge something like that, it shows that you're paying attention to her internal world, not just what's visible on the outside. There's also a sense of comfort that comes with being emotionally understood. When someone feels like they don't have to explain themselves or prove anything, they naturally become more open. That openness is what builds connection over time. It's not forced or rushed. It just happens because she feels seen in a way that most interactions don't offer. Another important part is that emotional validation feels more personal. Two people can give the same physical compliment, but emotional recognition is harder to copy because it depends on what you've actually observed. That's why it feels more real. It's not just words. It's a reflection of a moment or a behavior that you noticed and appreciated. It also creates a different kind of memory. Physical compliments fade quickly because they don't require much thought, but when someone validates how you feel or how you think, it sticks. It becomes something she remembers later, not because it was dramatic, but because it felt honest and rare. A lot of people focus so much on what to say that they completely ignore when to say it. But timing is what gives a compliment its weight. The exact same words can feel meaningful in one moment and completely flat in another, just because of when they're delivered. It's not just about the message, it's about the moment it lands in. When a compliment comes too early, it can feel rushed or unearned. There hasn't been enough interaction or context for it to feel real, so instead of creating connection, it can create distance. It might come across like you're trying too hard or saying something out of habit rather than genuine observation. That's why patience plays a bigger role than most people realize. On the other hand, when a compliment is delayed just enough, it feels more natural. It comes after you've had time to actually notice something. Maybe it's after a conversation, a shared moment, or seeing how she reacts in a certain situation. That context makes the words feel grounded instead of random. It gives them a reason to exist. There's also something powerful about unexpected timing. When a compliment isn't predictable, it stands out more. If it comes in a quiet moment or right after something small but meaningful, it creates a stronger emotional impact. It feels less like a routine exchange and more like a genuine reaction to something that just happened. Good timing also shows awareness. It signals that you're present in the interaction, not just waiting for your turn to speak. You're picking up on the flow, the mood, and the energy of the moment. And when a compliment fits naturally into that flow, it doesn't feel like an effort, it feels like it belongs there. A lot of people think stronger words create a stronger impact, but it usually works the opposite way. When a compliment feels too intense, too direct, or too exaggerated, it can lose its effect. It starts to feel forced instead of natural, like it's trying to impress rather than simply express something real. That's where subtlety becomes powerful. Subtle compliments don't try to dominate the moment. They fit into the conversation without interrupting it. Instead of making a big statement, they leave just enough space for her to think about what was said. That space is important because it allows the meaning to settle in naturally instead of being pushed. There's also a level of confidence behind subtlety. When someone doesn't feel the need to over-explain or overemphasize their words, it shows they're comfortable with what they're saying. It doesn't come across as seeking approval or reaction. It feels grounded, and that makes it more believable. Another reason subtlety works is because it feels more personal. Over-the-top compliments often sound like something that could be repeated to anyone, but a quieter, more understated remark feels more tailored. It's like you're noticing something specific and choosing to express it in a way that doesn't demand attention but still holds meaning. Subtle compliments also create curiosity. Instead of giving everything away in one sentence, they make her think about it later. She might replay it in her mind, trying to understand exactly what you meant. That reflection creates a longer-lasting impression compared to something that's loud and immediately obvious. Over time, this approach builds a different kind of presence. It's not about saying more, it's about saying just enough in a way that feels natural, controlled, and intentional authenticity is the cornerstone of any compliment that truly resonates. When words feel rehearsed or forced, it's easy to sense, even subconsciously. People can tell when something is being said just to impress, and it immediately loses impact. Genuine words, on the other hand, carry a kind of weight that can't be faked. Being authentic doesn't mean searching for perfect phrasing. It's about speaking from what's actually observed or felt in the moment. When a compliment reflects real attention, it comes across naturally, without trying too hard. That natural flow makes it believable and easy to receive. There's also an emotional comfort in authenticity. When someone feels that the words are sincere, it creates trust and openness. It's not about manipulating feelings or forcing a reaction. It's about reflecting what's truly noticed and appreciated. Even small gestures of authenticity matter. A simple, honest observation about her energy, her thought process, or the way she handles situations can mean far more than a polished, overused line. Over time, consistent authenticity builds a sense of being seen and understood, which is far more attractive than any clever or flashy compliment. One of the most overlooked aspects of giving a compliment is that it should come from actual observation, not from a desire to impress. When words are crafted just to get a reaction, they often feel shallow or mechanical. On the other hand, when a compliment reflects something genuinely noticed, it carries depth and meaning that's hard to ignore. Observation requires paying attention to more than just surface-level traits. It's about noticing how she speaks, how she reacts in certain situations, the little details that most people miss. Maybe it's the way she handles a challenge, the humor she injects into a conversation, or the thoughtful way she listens. Recognizing these things shows that you're not just seeing her physically, you're seeing who she really is. When a compliment comes from observation, it feels earned. It isn't something that could be said to anyone. It's specific to her in that moment. That specificity makes the interaction feel more personal and meaningful. She senses that the words are tied to an actual moment she created, which builds a deeper emotional connection. There's also a sense of authenticity that comes with observation. Compliments that reflect careful attention don't need exaggeration. They stand on their own because they are real. It doesn't feel like an attempt to impress or manipulate. It feels like someone genuinely noticing and appreciating what's already there. Over time, this approach changes how interactions feel. Instead of generic praise that fades quickly, observed compliments create memories. They leave an impression because they highlight something she might not even have realized about herself. Being genuinely observant transforms words from simple flattery into a reflection of true appreciation, and that's what makes them powerful and memorable. At the end of the day, giving a compliment isn't about memorized lines or flashy words. It's about noticing, understanding, and reflecting the things that truly make someone who they are. The compliments that leave a lasting impact are the ones that feel real, specific, and thoughtfully timed. They don't just touch the surface. They connect with feelings, thoughts, and moments that most people overlook. When words come from genuine observation and carry emotional meaning, they don't just get heard, they're remembered. They create a sense of being seen, valued, and understood in a way that goes beyond appearances or generic praise. That's what builds connection, trust, and attraction. It's also about subtlety, patience, and authenticity. A compliment doesn't need to be loud or dramatic to land. It needs to be true, intentional, and reflective of what's noticed in the moment. Over time, this kind of approach creates a different presence, one that stands out naturally and leaves a lasting impression without ever trying too hard. Ultimately, the power of a compliment lies in its meaning, not its delivery. The more it shows awareness, thoughtfulness, and genuine recognition, the more it resonates. When done right, these words don't just make someone feel good, they make them feel understood, seen, and appreciated in a way that creates a real, memorable connection.